Bank with UBA, Africa's global bank.
The All Africa Business Leader Awards celebrate and reward visionary, strategic and entrepreneurial leaders in business in Africa. The award will serve as a platform to discover which individuals are creating a culture of entrepreneurship, developing best practices and carving out powerful and sustainable models of business in the global economy. Enter your choice today at www.abla2011.com.
Beyond Markets, brought to you by First Bank. Truly the first.
Welcome back. News, we had the National Empowerment Fund launching their Enterprise Development Fund. For details of how it's going to work, we're now joined by Philisiwe Buthelezi, the Chief Executive Officer of the NEF. Thanks so much for your time. So I suppose this is a milestone in the work that you're doing, but the question is, why is an Enterprise Development Fund a milestone? Because as a facilitator of the codes of good practice for BEE, this is just one element of the work that you're doing, but seemingly so important.
Lerato, thank you very much for having me. Lerato, you'll remember that when we came up with the broad-based Black economic empowerment policy in the country, we're saying that it has to be broad-based. And the reason being that we actually wanted to move away from the narrow-based definition of BEE, which was at the time just focusing on the ownership aspect of broad-based Black economic empowerment. So what we have actually realized through the research we've just conducted is that a lot of the corporate sector in South Africa has actually done very, very well on the ownership aspect of empowerment, and very little focus has actually gone into skills development, enterprise development, and the CSI component of broad-based Black economic empowerment. But if you look at the role of enterprise development in the economy, we believe that that's where South Africa as an economy and as a country can actually get a lot of real value.
Business would argue, we're CNBC. Our core business is broadcasting. It's not to support production houses and other such things. We'd like to, but we just can't apply all our energies into that kind of area. So how can they participate then through the Enterprise Development Fund?
Let me take you back to how the codes of good practice worked. You'll remember that there was Code 100 that was looking at the ownership aspect of empowerment, and Code 600 that was looking at the role of enterprise development in broad-based Black economic empowerment. So what that code entails, it actually entails the participation by the private sector. What it says is that the private sector should actually contribute about 3% of their net profits after tax towards enterprise development initiatives. So 3% of your net profits after tax, if I were to use your top 40 JSE listed entities, would equate to something like 5.6 billion rands in the country. However, these big corporates in South Africa are saying we're very keen to actually play a very important role in this one aspect of empowerment. However, it actually takes us away from our core business. Our core business is really about providing shareholder value for our shareholders. So now as the government, we are saying we should be going out to the rural areas to go and set up new enterprises. That's not our core activity. So we went to the private sector to say, we believe as the NEF that we have now established, a very solid track record in actually building and creating Black-owned enterprises.
So business comes through with their 3% contribution after tax, however it is, it's structured immediately over 5 years. And then what do you do with it? How does the fund then take that money and start identifying SMEs that they can invest in? I mean, there's that 60-40 co-investment between the NEF and the Enterprise Development Fund. How does it all come together?
It goes into the NEF Enterprise Development Fund. Is going to be a ring-fenced entity at the NEF. So for every what will be receiving from the private sector, the NEF will contribute an additional 6 million. So it's going to be on a 60-40 basis with the private sector. So we then take those funds and we just apply them to our normal investment activities. We want to put a lot of emphasis on our SMME development, because that's where we believe we're going to be in a position to add a lot of value to the economy and actually build black-owned enterprises from scratch. And the other portion would be used to go and actually set up enterprises also in our rural communities. And the reason being, for us, we have already established that track record, in building those enterprises, and we believe we have the right kind of skills and expertise to do that.
Corporates would say to you, we're not a charity at the end of the day, so we make the contribution of 3% of profits after tax, but we are for you to identify SMEs that in many ways support the core functions of our industry. So like I'm using the example of broadcasting, identify a production house that would help us come up with new documentaries or whatever the case may be. If I'm a car manufacturer, help me identify an SME that would help me with automotive parts. Do you go out there and look for these programs or projects?
We'll be doing it in partnership with, if you talk about the auto industry in South Africa, you know that we have about 6 or 7 OEMs in the country. That would be your VW, Daimler Chrysler, and many others. So what we are saying to them, in fact, we're already talking to a lot of them, because remember that in terms of the broad-based BEE codes, we're saying that it's going to be extremely difficult for the multinationals to actually comply from an ownership aspect of broad-based black economic empowerment. We believe these companies can actually play a critical role would be in the establishment and development of these entities. And when we do that, we actually prefer to tap into their supply chain and their value chain processes, because you don't want to create enterprises in the periphery of the economy. They have to be an integral part of what those businesses do on a day-to-day basis.
How do you respond to people who say, funding is a real challenge, but in taking the small business throughout the entire metamorphosis of its life cycle, it's the technical support, it's the mentorship, it's ensuring that they can find affordable supplies from suppliers, it's ensuring that they can manage their balance sheet. That's really what's needed here.
That's what the NEF does. We have already built a portfolio of about 300 companies. We have the post-investment and the pre-investment division. And what our pre-investment division does is to provide advisory services to our enterprises. And once our money and our investments have gone to those enterprises, we still go and provide the post-investment support that would cover all of the areas that we're mentioning to me now.
Okay, thanks so much for your time.